I'm going to now come to Mr. Agah, our good friend. I'm hoping that you are audible. Fred, I mean, we've had a number of discussions. I know for a fact, with Wamkele and a number of us that work closely together on the continent with our leaders, that the WTO is a strong supporter of the continental free trade area, insofar as it can be as a global body, taking a region's perspective. But I'd just really like to get your views on the digital trade agenda, and what you think, what the implications in your view have been towards, fast tracking that agenda in light of COVID-19. And importantly and interestingly, as we all, try not to get too caught up in everything being COVID-19, I think we're also, particularly as we look at the major industrial infrastructure investments that are going to be required, we're now seeking to build the necessary level of resilience, because we know that these pandemics are likely to come, unfortunately, within every 6 years as a cycle. So what can we learn from each challenge, as Cunio mentioned, because of the tragedy of the Ebola outbreak in certain parts of Africa? It shielded us relative to the rest of the world in terms of fatalities for COVID-19 related fatalities. So Frederick, over to you, and I'd be really interested to just get your vision and your views on that, and of course any areas that you think that we can, as the private sector and as international organizations, do more and achieve more.
So I want to thank you and your colleagues for organizing this meeting and for inviting me to speak on the panel. From the perspective of an African, and also as somebody in the WTO, I would want to believe that your panel is very important for two main reasons. First, because of the exceptional circumstances that we find ourselves in, including how the importance of technology and digital trade have come out to play in the current crisis. And second, because we are now almost a year since the signing of the African free trade area, and I think we should now begin to take stock on the progress that can be made on the way forward, including how the CFTA can embrace the technological changes that the global economy is presently undergoing, which I think touches directly on the questions that you have asked. So I would like to cover two main points in my remarks. The first point relates to the impact of the virus on electronic trade and its contribution to regionalism. My second point concerns the digitization of trade facilitation measures and some thoughts on the WTO's approach post-COVID-19. So let me start with the impact of the current pandemic. I think you will all agree that the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of technology in keeping the world connected and running in times of crisis. Over the past few months, we have seen how governments across the world and in several African countries we are forced to impose social distancing measures, institute lockdowns, and temporarily close non-essential businesses to contain the pandemic spread. This crisis is having a grave economic impact globally, with unprecedented disruptions to trade as production and consumption are scaled back. The latest WTO's projections indicate that trade in 2020 will fall steeply in every region of the world and across all sectors of the economy. Given the uncertainty forecasts that we are inevitably having based on assumptions, but our figures indicate that the volume of global merchandise trade will fall between 13% and 32% this year compared to 2019. This will also have implications for Africa's integration process. Another unintended consequence of the pandemic has been a surge in e-commerce activity facilitated by the digital revolution. The stay-at-home measures implemented by governments to combat the virus have brought both consumers and businesses online. Many consumers have turned to online shopping, and a wide range of digital services and businesses, including in Africa, have had to adapt the way they operate by, for example, shifting to e-commerce and embracing teleworking to continue to provide goods and services to their customers. This shift has played a major role in both meeting consumers' needs and softening the economic blow of the pandemic, at least for some sectors. In short, the current pandemic and the measures taken to counteract it have accelerated, in the pace of a few months, the uptake of e-commerce and ICTs by businesses, consumers, and governments alike. While this may be a temporary response, in the long term, it may generate new consumer behavior, expand businesses online offer, and contribute to the expansion of the digital economy. So, the logical question is, what does this mean for Africa? African countries and their businesses are already tapping into the new possibilities unlocked by digitalization. Reported estimates suggest that between 2015 and 2017, about 264 e-commerce startups were operational across the continent, with the potential to create as many as 3 million jobs by 2025. However, the crisis has dramatically highlighted some of the hurdles and the vulnerability that Africa faces when it comes to digitalization and conducting trade online. While many African trade leaders have taken measures to encourage online purchases during the pandemic, these efforts were sometimes hindered by poor connectivity, financial, infrastructural, and regulatory barriers, as well as socioeconomic factors. These are areas that require further attention and investment in the near future to create an e-commerce environment that businesses and consumers in Africa can rely upon. And this is where regional integration also comes in. Addressing the challenges and harnessing the benefits of e-commerce requires a comprehensive and collaborative approach to ensure that e-commerce provides equal opportunities for all. The integration process underway in Africa, therefore, presents an opportunity in that sense. The entry into force of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area last year was momentous. It is important to keep this momentum as the agreement moves into its operational phase. Once fully implemented, the agreement will provide stability and predictability for African businesses, big and small. It will give them access to the world's largest free trade area and will offer them a consumer base of 1.2 billion people. As you are aware, WTO members are exploring broader e-commerce issues and deepening their discussions on the challenges and benefits of digital trade. At the multilateral level, under the Work Program on Electronic Commerce, members have been focusing on assessing the impact and scope of the moratorium on customs duties on electronic transmissions. But the mandate for these discussions is broader and includes assessing the challenges and opportunities that developing and least developed countries face when engaging in e-commerce. In parallel, a group of 84 countries, including 6 African countries, namely Benin, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, and Nigeria, have started negotiations on trade-related aspects of e-commerce. The issues covered include facilitating electronic transactions, consumer protection, flow of information, digital trade facilitation and logistics, privacy, market access, business trust, as well as important cross-cutting issues such as capacity building, cooperation, and transparency. These issues are all relevant in today's digital economy and warrant some serious consideration. The current pandemic has further brought these issues to the fore. I therefore believe that it is important that African countries are aware of these discussions and that they closely consider these issues at the national, regional, and continental level, but also in the context of broader multilateral cooperation. With the challenge of COVID-19 pandemic in front of us and the lessons we have learned over the past months, it's important for African countries to put forward their views and expectations. Here, the private sector can contribute by offering on-the-ground expertise and insight into what is needed for Africa to compete in the post-COVID-19 economy. Our countries can provide a unique perspective to the e-commerce discussions, and it is important that we lend our voices to these conversations. Only with Africa's participation will these discussions be truly inclusive, meaningful, and credible. The WTO therefore welcomes ongoing efforts towards regional economic integration, not only regarding traditional trade, but also with regard to digital trade. We at the WTO see regional integration as a major instrument for stability and economic progress, and as a complementary stepping stone towards broader multilateral cooperation. The work of the WTO complements these efforts by removing barriers to international trade. WTO rules facilitate and support regional integration. WTO rules can also support countries' efforts in recovering from the economic disruption caused by the COVID-19 crisis. For example, transparency requirements in WTO agreements and the publication of up-to-date information is critical at this juncture, where countries are taking trade measures to secure essential goods. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the WTO has received more than 80 notifications from members regarding measures related to COVID-19 in the areas of market access, technical barriers to trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and trade facilitation. WTO agreements provide that information related to trade measures, which now includes COVID-19 related measures, is made publicly available. The foundations are also in place so that such information may be published through the internet, and traders and governments, including countries across Africa, can reach out to mandated inquiry points to receive latest information, ensure access to information, that is critical and minimize the risk of delays, of rejection of goods at the border. So I will now make my second point briefly, which is on the digitization of trade facilitation measures. COVID-19 has acted as an accelerator for the digital economy, and the situation in Africa is not different. Trade facilitation through data and insights will be critical in the reconfiguration and restoration of post-COVID-19 regional and global value chains. But above all, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement offers an important platform for African countries to come together to address common challenges and ensure our collective prosperity, including in the digital reality of today's trade. In that regard, the digital transformation strategy adopted by the African Union earlier this year is timely. Its objective of devising a common coordinated approach towards building a digital single market in Africa by 2030 is commendable. This will assist African countries reap the benefits and address the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution, including in the area of electronic commerce and digital trade. Let me also emphasize how the implementation of the WTO's Trade Facilitation Agreement can contribute to accelerate the processing of imports and exports in Africa, even in the context of the current crisis, where physical presence procedures have been reduced or eliminated due to the closing of government offices to contain the spread of the virus. For instance, the TFA offers a toolkit covering the use of electronic documents, electronic payments, and electronic single windows, among others. The TFA also supports regional approaches to implement a number of these tools. For example, the inquiry points that I had earlier mentioned. COVID-19 has afforded members with an opportunity to analyze how these tools can be of use and think about accelerating the self-designated timelines for the implementation of commitments that could help deal with social distancing guidelines and lockdowns. Since the implementation of electronic means requires considerable resources, the call from the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement Secretariat should be to engage with the donor community and discuss how they can assist in fast-tracking TFA implementation in Africa, an excellent way of turning this crisis into an opportunity. If this pandemic has given us any wisdom, it should be that the world is deeply interconnected, interdependent, and we need each other to face the challenges ahead. Let me therefore conclude by re-emphasizing the importance of seeking deeper economic integration, including looking at how digitization can facilitate that process. This will be important for Africa's regional integration, but also for its position in the world trade. We continue to cooperate with the African Union Commission, and look forward to cooperating with the newly established Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat under the able leadership of my brother, Ambassador Wamkele. The WTO has offered its expertise during the negotiating phase of the CFTA and stands ready to provide further assistance as phase 2 is rolled out. I will close with something for us to ponder, which, again, I must quote our famous leader, late Mandela, and what he said while speaking at the AIDS, speaking about the AIDS crisis in Tromsø in Norway in 2005. And I quote, "When the history of our times is written, will we be remembered as a generation that turned our backs in a moment of global crisis, or will it be recorded that we did the right thing?" End of quote. I thank you, Herbert and colleagues, for your attention.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.